Somewhere in the Atlantic, where the blue of the sky melts into the deeper blue of the sea, lies a place of whispers, a place where ships vanish without distress calls, where planes disappear from radar as if swallowed whole. The Bermuda Triangle, a name that conjures mystery, dread, and an unsettling quiet. For centuries, sailors have spoken of strange lights beneath the waves, compasses spinning wildly, and an unnatural stillness in the air. Some say it's cursed. Others believe it's a doorway to something beyond our understanding. Tonight we drift into its history, not with fear but with curiosity. Let the stories carry you, like a slow current, into the unknown. In the western reaches of the North Atlantic, the sea stretches in a restless expanse, deep and endless, framed by three distant points. To the north, the rocky outcrop of Bermuda rises from turquoise waters. To the south, the mountainous coast of Puerto Rico. To the west, the glittering shoreline of Florida. Between these points lies a region both defined and imagined, the Bermuda Triangle. It is a shape without substance, a geography of rumor. No borders are marked upon the ocean. No maritime authority has drawn official lines. Yet in the minds of sailors, pilots, and storytellers, the triangle is a place that exists not just in coordinates, but in a feeling, a faint unease, like a shadow under the bright Caribbean sun. The waters here are beautiful in a way that almost seems deliberate, as if the ocean were trying to lull those who traverse it into forgetting its dangers. Over shallow banks and coral gardens, the sea glows aquamarine, a color so pure it seems to belong to another world. Then, without warning, the seafloor falls away into chasms and trenches, and the color deepens to a velvet indigo. Somewhere below, currents twist and wander, colliding in slow spirals that can stretch for hundreds of miles. Long before the phrase Bermuda Triangle was coined in the 20th century, there were murmurs of strangeness here. Christopher Columbus himself, on his first voyage in 1492, recorded in his log unusual behavior from his compass, a slow, inexplicable drift from true north. For the men on deck, who already feared the uncharted seas, this was not a small matter. The compass was their tether to the known world, and to see it wander was to be reminded that they sailed on the edge of something vast and unknown. On certain nights, Columbus noted strange lights low on the horizon. He described them as flickering like candle flames, appearing and vanishing without cause. Some historians have speculated they were caused by atmospheric phenomena or distant fires on land. Others leave the matter open, the exact nature of these lights fading into the long night of history. In the centuries that followed, as European empires expanded and trade routes multiplied, this stretch of the Atlantic became a corridor for ships. From the galleons of Spain to the merchant brigs of England and the privateers of the Caribbean. Most passed through without incident. Some did not. There were tales of sudden storms, squalls that appeared on a sky that only moments before had been blue and clear. Winds would howl without warning, tearing sails and pitching ships against waves that seemed to rise from nowhere. Other accounts spoke of eerier scenes, of ships found adrift and silent, their decks empty, their cargo untouched, their food still laid out as if for a meal interrupted. The fate of their crews was unknown. Not every such disappearance happened neatly within the triangle's supposed boundaries. The ocean is wide, and chance is a great deceiver. Yet slowly these stories began to collect in the minds of sailors, each retelling drawing invisible lines between them, until a shape emerged. By the late 19th century, the region had already begun to attract a reputation. American newspapers occasionally published brief reports of lost vessels, often without explanation. A schooner might vanish on a calm crossing from Havana to New York. A small fishing fleet might fail to return from the reefs near the Bahamas. In an age before radio, such disappearances were often discovered weeks later, when no word came and no sails were sighted. It is easy, from the distance of history, to imagine these vanishings as sudden. One moment the ship is there, the next it is gone. But for those at sea, the process was often slow, a tightening of circumstances, a shift in wind, a swell from an unexpected direction, a low bank of clouds gathering in the east. In the hold, water might be seeping from a leak. On deck, the crew might be watching the compass swing gently, uncertain why. And always, above and around them, the sea and sky. Endless, indifferent. The triangle's geography is a study in contrasts. To the north and east lie deep waters. The Puerto Rico Trench drops more than 27,000 feet, one of the deepest points in the Atlantic. To the west are the shallows of the Bahama Banks, where coral reefs lie just below the surface, ready to tear the hull of any ship that drifts too far off course. The Gulf Stream runs through the region like a great river, carrying warm waters from the Gulf of Mexico out into the Atlantic at several miles per hour. A ship caught without power can be carried far from its last known position in a short time, making rescue difficult even today. In this interplay of currents, depths, and weather patterns, there are countless opportunities for danger and for disappearance. Yet for all its natural hazards, the Bermuda Triangle's reputation cannot be explained by geography alone. There is a quality to the stories that go beyond mere loss. It is the absence of resolution, the way a ship or a plane or a crew can vanish without leaving a trace, the way no wreckage is found, no distress signal sent, no survivor to tell the final moments. It is this absence that invites the imagination to fill the void. Even in the calmest retellings, there is something unsettling about the idea that the ocean can take without giving back. That a voyage can be swallowed whole, leaving not even a ripple behind. And in the Bermuda Triangle, this possibility seems always to linger, just beneath the shining surface. As the 20th century dawned, new technologies would bring both clarity and deeper mystery to these waters. Ships gained radios, aircraft crossed the skies above. The region's role in commerce and travel only increased, and with it came a new chapter in the Triangle's history, one that would give its legend the momentum it carries to this day. But that is for later. For now, the first chapter is the sea itself, vast, beautiful, and, for those who listen closely, always whispering. In the centuries after Columbus's first crossing, the Atlantic became the spine of empire. The winds that blew from east to west and the currents that carried ships home again were the veins and arteries of global trade, and the waters of the Bermuda Triangle lay directly in the path of this commerce. By the mid-17th century, fleets of Spanish galleons made the long journey from the New World to Europe, their holds heavy with silver from the mines of Peru and Mexico. These ships would gather in Havana before setting out across the Atlantic, skirting the Florida coast before catching the currents that curved northward. For those galleons, the waters between the Bahamas, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico were both familiar and feared. Storms were the constant enemy of the age of sail. The Caribbean hurricane season, which still holds sway today, could scatter a fleet with terrifying ease. A storm might rise over the horizon as a distant wall of cloud, moving with deceptive slowness, before unleashing winds that could tear sails to ribbons and splinter masts like kindling. The sea, whipped into mountainous swells, would hurl even the largest ship from crest to trough. But not all losses could be explained by storms. Among the earliest tales to reach Europe were those of ships that simply failed to arrive. No word of battle, no wreckage sighted, no survivors clinging to debris. A captain might be last seen taking his ship out of Havana harbor, bound for Cadiz, and never be heard from again. The logbooks of the time reveal a rhythm of anxiety, not only about weather, but about the unpredictable nature of navigation in these waters. Magnetic compasses, the chief instrument for determining direction, could be affected by local anomalies. Without precise longitude measurements, a problem unsolved until the late 18th century, captains relied on dead reckoning, estimating their east-west position by speed and time. In the Gulf Stream, where the current could carry a ship far off its expected course, this was a dangerous game. In 1780, during what came to be called the Great Hurricane, a fleet of ships vanished somewhere in the Triangle's domain. While storms were the likely cause, the scale of the disaster, hundreds of vessels lost, thousands of lives, fed the notion that these waters were cursed. Survivors from other parts of the hurricane's path spoke of seas so violent that entire ships were swallowed whole between the waves. Privateers and pirates added their own risks. The Bahamas in particular were a haven for those who preyed upon merchant shipping. A vessel that vanished here might have been taken, its crew killed or scattered, its hull burned to hide the evidence. Yet pirate attacks left traces, rumors, sightings, stolen cargo turning up in distant ports. It was the disappearances without such echoes that stayed in the mind. One of the most haunting maritime stories of the 19th century, though it occurred slightly outside the strict geographic triangle, was that of the Mary Celeste. Found adrift in 1872 in the Atlantic with no crew aboard, her sails partly set, and no sign of struggle, the ship became a symbol of oceanic mystery. While the Mary Celeste was discovered far from the Triangle, its legend would later be tied in the public mind to other tales of ghost ships in these latitudes. Closer to the Triangle's heart, there were smaller but equally puzzling cases. In 1814, the USS Wasp, an American sloop of war, vanished somewhere near the Caribbean after leaving port for a routine patrol. She was an experienced vessel with a seasoned crew, yet no trace was ever found. Similarly, in 1854, the brig Rosalie was found drifting through the Triangle's waters, her sails set, cargo intact, but no crew aboard. The ship's log had not been updated for days. Food and water were plentiful. It was as though the crew had simply stepped overboard and disappeared into the sky. Throughout the age of sail, these vanishings were folded into the seafaring culture. Sailors told and retold them at night watches, the details shifting with each voice. Some blamed sudden waterspouts, spirals of wind and water that could, in theory, capsize a small vessel. Others whispered of dead calms in the Sargasso Sea, where ships could drift for weeks, trapped in mats of floating weed, their crews driven to desperation. The truth perhaps lay in a web of causes: weather, currents, navigation errors, disease, and yes, chance. But when a ship disappeared in the waters we now call the Bermuda Triangle, chance was not the word that stuck. By the dawn of the 20th century, the era of wind and sail was giving way to steel hulls and steam engines. Yet the sea's reputation did not fade. The mysteries of the age of sail would simply be joined by new ones, faster, louder, and at times, even stranger. The invention of powered flight brought a new dimension to the Triangle's legend. Where ships were limited to the surface, aircraft soared above, promising speed, direct routes, and a view of the sea from the clouds. Yet the very factors that had confounded sailors, unpredictable weather, magnetic anomalies, and the disorienting vastness, proved just as dangerous to pilots. The most famous of all aviation disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle is that of Flight 19. On December 5, 1945, 5 U.S. Navy Avenger torpedo bombers departed from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on a routine training mission. The weather was fair, visibility good. Their route would take them east over the Bahamas, then north, then back west to base. It was a mission of only a few hours. 2 hours into the flight, radio transmissions began to reveal a problem. The leader of Flight 19, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, reported that his compasses were malfunctioning. He believed they were off course, though the exact nature of his confusion remains debated. Over the next 2 hours, the transmissions grew more uncertain. Taylor's voice was calm but increasingly puzzled. At one point, he reportedly said, "We are entering white water. Nothing seems right. We don't know where we are." Search planes were dispatched immediately. One of them, a PBM Mariner flying boat, also vanished without a trace, with 13 crew aboard. No wreckage from either Flight 19 or the Mariner was ever recovered. In the days and weeks that followed, a massive search by air and sea turned up nothing. Theories have ranged from navigational error to sudden storms to the possibility of fuel exhaustion over open sea. But the complete absence of debris from so many aircraft and the strange tone of the pilot's last words cemented the Flight 19 story as a cornerstone of the Triangle legend. Over the decades, other aircraft have been lost here. DC-3 passenger planes vanishing en route to Miami, private planes disappearing from radar without issuing distress calls. In each case, the same elements recur: a routine flight, clear weather, sudden loss of contact, and no trace found despite extensive searches. For those who study the phenomenon, aviation cases are particularly haunting. A ship can sink silently and slowly. An aircraft that suffers mechanical failure at altitude usually has some time to attempt a controlled landing or ditching. That so many flights in the Triangle seem to end with silence, no mayday, no beacon, feeds the enduring question: what is it in these skies and seas that takes without leaving behind? The transition from sail to steam brought steel hulls, engines that did not tire, and the confidence of a modern age. But in the waters of the Bermuda Triangle, the 20th century proved no gentler than the 18th. The era of ghost ships was not over. It was simply reborn. In March 1918, the USS Cyclops, a massive Navy collier, left the island of Barbados bound for Baltimore. She carried 10,000 tons of manganese ore and a crew of 309. The Cyclops was not a fragile vessel. She was the largest ship in the Navy's fleet at the time, powered by engines and built to withstand the rigors of war. She never arrived. No distress signal was received. No wreckage was ever found. The disappearance of the Cyclops remains one of the single largest losses of life in U.S. naval history outside of combat. Her captain had sent no word of trouble, and the weather along her route was considered moderate. In the years since, theories have ranged from structural failure to enemy action to more speculative possibilities, but nothing has been proven. The sea simply closed over her, and she was gone. Two of the Cyclops' sister ships, the Proteus and the Nereus, would vanish under similar circumstances in later years, each carrying heavy cargo through or near the Triangle's waters. In 1925, the SS Cotopaxi, a tramp steamer en route from Charleston, South Carolina to Havana, disappeared after reporting she was taking on water in rough seas. For decades, her fate was a mystery, until a wreck discovered off the coast of Florida in 2020 was identified as hers. While her loss could be explained by the storm she encountered, her inclusion in Triangle lore persisted because of the suddenness with which she vanished from radio contact. There were smaller, quieter disappearances too. Fishing vessels whose names were known only to the locals who worked them. Private yachts that failed to arrive at their next port. Even as radio communication and coastal patrols improved, there remained incidents where no trace was found, no signal sent, as though whatever claimed the vessel worked too quickly for any call to be made. In some cases, debris did wash ashore, a section of hull, a broken mast, but without clear cause. In others, the sea yielded nothing. The deeper the loss, the greater the weight of speculation. For those who travel by sea, disappearance is the deepest fear. A wreck on the rocks is a tragedy, but it is a tragedy with answers. A sinking in sight of shore can be survived or at least explained. But a ship that simply fails to arrive, that leaves behind no sign of struggle or decay, touches a more ancient nerve. It is the fear of being erased. The Bermuda Triangle, whether by coincidence or cause, has become the stage upon which such erasures play out again and again. The human mind resists uncertainty. Faced with mystery, it seeks cause. In the case of the Bermuda Triangle, the search for cause has spawned a spectrum of explanations, from the purely natural to the deeply speculative. Oceanographers point to the region's geography. The confluence of currents, including the powerful Gulf Stream, can carry wreckage far from the site of an accident, scattering it so widely that searches fail. Sudden shifts in weather, including microbursts and waterspouts, can overwhelm even large vessels or aircraft before distress signals can be sent. There are also geological possibilities. The seafloor here holds vast deposits of methane hydrates, ice-like compounds that can, under certain conditions, release large volumes of gas. If such a release occurred, it could reduce the density of the water above, causing a ship to lose buoyancy and sink rapidly. An aircraft flying through a burst of methane could experience engine failure. While laboratory experiments have shown the basic plausibility, there is no direct evidence linking such events to specific disappearances in the triangle. Magnetic anomalies are another point of discussion. In certain parts of the triangle, compasses can align with true north rather than magnetic north, causing navigational errors if uncorrected. Pilots and captains today are trained to account for this, but in earlier eras, such deviation could be catastrophic. Beyond science lie the more imaginative theories. Some speak of time warps, zones where the flow of time itself is altered, swallowing a vessel into another era or dimension. Others envision alien abductions, with ships and planes plucked from the sea and sky for purposes unknown. There are even whispers of the lost city of Atlantis, its ancient technology still active beneath the waves. For most, these are stories, compelling in their strangeness, but lacking in evidence. Yet their endurance speaks to something deeper, the desire for mystery to remain unsolved, for the sea to keep at least one secret from the age of satellites and sonar. The age of GPS, radar, and constant communication might be expected to end the triangle's mystery. And yet, incidents continue. In June 2005, a Piper PA-23 aircraft flying from Treasure Cay, Bahamas to Fort Pierce, Florida, disappeared from radar. There was no distress call. The weather was good. The plane and its 3 passengers were never found. In 2017, a twin-engine MU-2B aircraft vanished off the coast of Eleuthera, Bahamas, while en route to Florida. Air traffic controllers lost contact without warning. Despite extensive searches, no debris was recovered. Even with modern tracking, a small craft can vanish quickly. The ocean's vastness remains a formidable challenge. A few square miles of search area can conceal a wreck indefinitely if currents carry debris away before rescuers arrive. It is this persistence of mystery in the modern era that keeps the Bermuda Triangle alive in public imagination. Technology has reduced the number of vanishings, but it has not erased them. And when they do occur, the absence of explanation feels all the sharper. The Bermuda Triangle is, in the end, a mirror. It reflects the fears and fascinations we bring to it. For the sailor of the 18th century, it was the terror of storms and the unknown depths. For the pilot of the 20th, it was the sudden failure of instruments, the loss of orientation. For us today, it is the unsettling knowledge that even in an age of instant communication and satellite eyes, there are still places where the world can close around you and leave no trace. Perhaps there is no single cause behind the disappearances. Perhaps the triangle is only a name we give to a cluster of accidents, a pattern our minds impose upon chance. But patterns once named take on lives of their own. The waters between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico will remain a corridor of commerce and travel. Planes will cross above, ships will pass below, and most will arrive safely. But the legend will linger in the minds of those who look out over the sea and feel the faint shiver of possibility. That somewhere beneath the bright surface lies a threshold, and that to cross it is to risk vanishing into the endless horizon. Perhaps the Bermuda Triangle is not a place of death, but of transformation. A threshold between worlds. A silence so deep it becomes a voice. Thank you for joining us tonight as we uncover the history of disappearances over the Bermuda Triangle. May your dreams be calm, your rest be deep. This has been Midnight History for Sleep. Until next time, good night.